Hi, I'm John Rowland with Highland Lapidary, and I'm doing a little service bulletin today for anyone who has a high-tone saw or one of our Model 12s, because we use the same switch box. So what I discovered through feedback from one of our customers is that there is a small assembly issue in some of the boxes, and it's very easy to check. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the process of how you would check that to make sure that you aren't going to have any kind of a problem. So what I'll do is, if you look down here in the box inside, I'm going to start with taking the chain off. All I do there is I hold the switch in position and then slide the chain off that hook. And then I'm going to take this through bolt loose, just a couple of wrenches to do that. And I take the washers off and I set them aside, and then I pull the bolt out. Now it's free, and I can take these screws out of the cover. There's 4 screws in here. And you'll see this is a very simple thing to take apart. Pretty much just about as easy to put back together. So now I got my box loose, get my wrenches out of the way, and I'm going to slide this off, get this out, and inside we have our motor. Now if you want the box out of your way, which is kind of nice, we have these connectors and they just unplug. So these are the connectors that hold the motor in, and you hold both hands of the sides of the connector when you go to unplug it. Don't pull on the wire, because it's not really designed, these electrical connections. When you pull on the wire, you might actually pull the insulation back or something. So now I can take this box and I'll just set it aside here. And what is actually incorrect in the saw, and I'll show you why it's incorrect, is this is called a rotation plate. Now this rotation plate keeps the motor from rotating inside the box. The plate is actually on backwards because the motor wants to try and go this direction. So the longer side of the plate should be over here where it pushes against the top of the box. When it's like this, the plate gets really close to the switch inside the box. So we don't really like that. And I'll show you what we do to change that. It takes just a couple of minutes. There's 2 set screws here, and I use a little wrench like this. And those screws, we put them pretty tight so they don't come loose on you while you're running your saw. But using this method, you don't want a ball end, you want a square end, and then the motor just slips off. And now all we're gonna do is we're gonna take these 2 screws out, not lose our washers. And then we're going to flip the plate over. And then just tighten the screws back down. And then all we're going to do, now when we put this back on, this flat here, we want to make sure that we get it right underneath the screw, not on an angle or something. Now, part of what I'll do is I'll wiggle the motor back and forth. That makes sure that that seats down in that flat, and then I come back and I crank it down. I don't go crazy on it, but I get a little torque on it because I don't want this thing coming loose, because if it comes loose, it's really a nuisance. So now it's tight, and we've corrected the issue, and now we're going to put our box back on. So these connectors, I'm going to come in here and you make sure you get the spade of the connector right down into the slot, and I get it on both sides. Make sure they're all the way in. Then with my motor in the vertical position, Now I'm going to position this back in. Now there's two things I'm going to do here. You can see we had some ultra black on there. I'm going to, before I put it on there, I'm going to put a little of the ultra black where that bolt sits. This helps keep oil from seeping out. And I'm going to do a little ultra black in each screw hole. And that keeps, again, the oil from seeping out. Now, there's not much oil that comes out of these, and if it does, it runs down the front of the unit and back into the tank. But I kind of like to keep a clean saw, so that's why we do that. Now, I want to get my first screws in so I don't smear my ultra black all over the place. I get one screw in that side, and then I'm going to get the second screw in this side. Now I don't tighten them up until I get all four in. That's kind of a assembly rule, because you tighten one up and it's a little off center, then it makes putting the others in really difficult. And then I can slide the bolt up, and I'm going to come inside and put my flat washer on, then my lock washer, then my nut. And then I'm going to hold the outside. This time I don't want the outside to turn, because it will sit there and rub all the ultra black out of the way instead of letting it sit right underneath that bolt good. So when I get it tight, and it doesn't need to be super tight, then I'm going to come back here and make sure all four of my screws are tight. Again, you don't have to be super muscly on these. If you do, you can strip the threads or strip the head of the screw. And then the last thing inside is putting the chain on. Now, some people will make a mess of this. They'll pry this spring apart here, or they'll pry it apart there. You don't need to do that. This is a little trick. You take this and you push it in between the spring, then you slide forward, and it goes in. Let me show you again, because this is like one of the things that makes it so easy if you know this little trick, because you're not bending the spring and then deforming it and not being able to get it back to shape. And there you go. Problem averted. So there's no risk now of that plate rubbing against the switch.